was nowhere that this murderer would be able to hide that we wouldn't find him. I now stand here less than 24 hours later and tell you that this murderer who brutally murdered and committed this heinous, vile, and unthinkable crime against these two innocent victims is under arrest. Let me talk a little bit now about how we got here. How did we get to this point? I have to tell you, me as the sheriff and me as someone in this community, like all of you, we shouldn't be more proud of the men and women that are the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and what they've accomplished here in the last 24 hours. They were determined and they never gave up. And what I'm announcing here now is as a result of their efforts. Last night we knew that this murderer had about almost a 3-hour head start on us, and he had fled on foot. So we immediately set up a perimeter almost 2.5 to 3 miles wide, because we knew he had this type of head start. Overnight, deputies, detectives, our canine units, and our aviators in the sky never gave up. I was here till early in the morning, and it was incredible to watch how this teamwork came together, this collaborative effort from all the teams here in the office, from the technology using that infrared camera and looking at heat signatures, watching the different canine units, and they would work as a team, how one dog would get tired and they bring another one out and keep the search going, from the bloodhounds, a tremendous asset and resource, all the way to our apprehensive canines. They never gave up. At one point, we got extremely excited after we gave an update last night because we found a bloody shirt that we were confident was his. So we all got excited. We're like, we're going to wrap this up. And then at times throughout the night, we continued to get extremely excited because the dogs would pick up on a scent, then they would lose a scent. This morning now it was time to go into phase 2 of this perimeter search. We wanted to close the perimeter in, hold the perimeter, but start closing it in and do more of a finite grid search. So we called out even more deputies and detectives to do that. Part of that was a contingency of undercover detectives that are in undercover cars where they could go in and get a look without being seen as a law enforcement officer. During this finite search, one of our gang detectives, our undercover detectives, sees a Hispanic male that possibly could be our suspect. Could be this person who committed this murder, wearing a heavy jacket, almost like a parka jacket. So he sees this Hispanic male walking out of what is almost like an abandoned barn, abandoned housing area. So he calls it out. I have to talk a second about the professionalism, not only of every deputy that was out here, but of this detective when he showed the kind of restraint. We're taught when you see a bad guy, you run after the bad guy. But he used such great restraint because he knew that if he couldn't capture this murderer before he got into this heavily dense shrubbery and wooded area, that he would make it worse. He would taint the scent of these canines. So a lot of deputies out here overnight use great discipline by staying in their cars, not to taint the scent of the different deputies, either dog throughout the evening. So he, at some point, our suspect realizes that he's probably a law enforcement officer, sees him looking through the binoculars, and I think figures out the gig is up. So he runs, he refuses commands to stop, and he does just what we were afraid he that he would do, and he runs into a heavily wooded and dense area with a lot of overgrown vegetation. When I say overgrown, you can't see maybe 6 inches of foot into it, nonetheless trying to navigate into it where he is. Well, he might have been able to outrun the visual sight of the deputies, these hard-charging deputies that were out here, but he couldn't outrun the scent of this canine. And the canine took us right to it. And I'm going to release the body cam footage because it's so amazing, and well, you can see it. It paints a better picture of what these deputies actually had to go through to apprehend a suspect as they're trying to peel the layers back and could barely see him as they're constantly giving commands to surrender, to surrender, to surrender. They give one final command: if you don't surrender, I'm going to release the dog. The dog goes in and does what he's trained to do, either grab by the leg or the arm and try to bring him out to to safety where the deputies can place him under arrest. During that, as the canine is grabbing the jacket, he's able to slip out of the jacket. By that time, more detectives were on scene, and they begin to help these two canine officers that were trying to apprehend this subject. They pull him into an area that's not as densely populated. When I talk about the vegetation, they continue to give him arrest commands. He is non-compliant the entire time. The body cam footage still shows the great restraint of our deputies. They finally are able to place him under arrest. Now comes the time. This murderer will now face the full weight of the criminal justice system for this heinous and vile murders that he committed against these two innocent victims. He has now been taken back to our investigative area where we'll attempt to do an interview. I called right before I came up here. Nothing yet. We have some Spanish speakers getting ready to discuss with him. We asked him if he was bit. All he said is that in the back of his area, his head area, he thought he was bit. We didn't see any marks. We didn't see any other marks on him. I think the canine got more of the jacket than actually him. So our crime scene is just finishing up here. I told you again last night, this was a gruesome scene. We do know now. Last night was so gruesome, I stood here and said that they were brutally beaten to death. It was that gruesome. We now know that he stabbed these two victims. We know that he was romantically involved, not married, with our victim, who was 37 years of age, and our 5-year-old victim that he also stabbed violently, both of them, very violently. He has no connection with that 5-year-old. We thought last night that was his daughter. We've learned that that's not the case, that her father, this young child's father, is still in Guatemala. What questions can I attempt to answer?
I know it's early in the investigation.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us about the relationship between all three of those people? When did they come here from Guatemala? And a lot of people are asking, have they entered this country legally or not?
Yeah, great question. We're still working through that. Our main concern was to identify him and find out how he entered our country. We learned with working with our partners at Homeland Security, he did enter this country unlawfully. Now we will continue to work to find out, did his girlfriend, for lack of a better term, and her daughter come in here and enter in this country unlawfully as well? We're working through that at this time.
What is their relationship between him or the child?
Yeah, the child's not his. We did confirm that. The father's still in Guatemala. But the relationship we know at this time, they were not married. They are romantically involved. That's the extent of the information that we have at this time. Another great question. We set up the perimeter about 2.5 miles, 3 miles away, knowing he had such a head start on us, even on foot. He was located over here, and we'll release the exact location, just about 2.3 miles from right here. So again, when I talk about we should all be proud of the incredible passion and dedicated efforts of the sheriff's office, they did a phenomenal job of making sure they set up a perimeter, and their efforts kept him. There was nowhere for him to go. And by constantly working this consistently as we did throughout the evening, there was nowhere for him to go. He couldn't get up and go anywhere. There wasn't a square inch of this 2.5 mile, almost 3 mile circumference that we didn't have covered. The only thing he had on him was a little bit of cash and his cell phone. That was the only thing on him.
Was he getting any assistance from anyone?
Not that we're aware of. Some people that we spoke to said that he did reach out to them, and fortunate for us, every time he called somebody to ask for help, they told him absolutely not getting involved. So we do know at this time he did make some, because as we're going through looking at his contact, where he worked, his boss, his brother who lives here, different friends, we spoke to them. We were able to track them down throughout the night and overnight. And during that time, they all admitted that he had called asking for help, and they all declined that offer and denied that help and said, you're not getting us involved. So great job by this community. Luckily, because of those those efforts. We're not sitting here announcing that someone else is going to jail for harboring a fugitive.
They were at the Monday bubble. How long was that?
Don't know. We don't know. All we know is that around 7 months ago, and we're still working on. We don't know the exact date because they entered the country unlawfully. We do know from talking to some neighbors and some interviews that we believe about 7 months ago, the three of them unlawfully entered the country.
And Jared, did they come here? They've been in kind of our area for the last 7 months. I think last thing you mentioned 3 months. Do we have any more details on that?
Correct. No. And again, nothing's confirmed 100%. Let me just preface that. But we believe, talking to different people, there's different accounts that they've been in this area the whole time for the last 7 months since they entered the country.
And do we know where he worked, what he did?
I don't know, and I'm sorry. If we do, I'll certainly get that out to you. I don't know that. We do know he was working. Don't know where.
Any other questions? Had you guys responded to any domestic violence calls, situations that may be prior to this?
We haven't. We have no calls for service at this mobile home where they shared the home with some other individuals that rented some rooms in the home too. We have no calls for service out here. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, guys, if y'all stay to the end, I hope y'all enjoy it, and I want to put out more content for y'all because y'all been rocking with me. I appreciate it so much, y'all. And some of my subscribers, they was asking me for my Cash App, but I'm gonna put the Cash App up here, and y'all can donate. You know, so I can keep making good content. I need to start making better content. So thank you so much that you watched the whole video and enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out. Hit that like button and subscribe.